And when it comes to understanding the power of our light, we need to know that there are no small lights. It doesn't matter the size of your light. It doesn't matter the color of your light. It doesn't matter the religious denomination or even none of your light. What matters is the source of your connection. Teachings come through in amazing ways. This week I was walking down on the waterfront early one morning, and there were a lot of people out walking around. It was a beautiful early morning. And behind me, a woman just passed me who was jogging with 2 dogs. And she kind of went around, and I saw her 2 dogs just passed. At just about the same time, a man and a little girl and another dog were walking towards me. And so I love animals, and I sort of knew what was going to happen. When in that small space, when those 3 dogs passed, I thought, this is going to be interesting. So here's the runner with the 2 dogs going this way. Here's the man and the little girl going this way. I'm right behind. And as soon as they went by, the dogs are snipping at each other, and it just, you know. So this little girl let out a scream as I have never heard. I'm not talking mamsy-pamsy. I'm talking this child will be an opera star. It would have shattered glass had there been. It was the clearest, loudest scream that I have ever heard. And in that moment, I stopped. Her dad stopped. One of the dogs sat down. I'm not kidding you. Such a piercing scream. The dog sat down. We all stopped. And then the little girl went, hee. You can't make this stuff up. And we all went on our way. And I had been marinating in this talk as I do, and it's like the Spirit of God said, you see that child, let her light shine. That little teeny body let out a sound that was way bigger than that little body. It made a dog sit down. I'm talking a big dog. Her dad stopped. We all stopped. And then that little light went, hee. It was adorable. When we let our light shine, we're making ourselves available for whatever it is that needs to come through in such a way that change happens. We make our light shine. We let our light shine. Howard Thurman said, don't ask yourself what the world needs. Ask yourself what makes you come alive and then go do it. Because what the world needs is people who have come alive. Yes? Yes. What the world needs is people who have come alive. In 1901, a young man was born in Louisiana. Soon after he was born, his father left. His mother became a prostitute. It was drugs, alcohol. You can just write the story. The child went from grandmother here to there. Wound up as a young man, he had a gun and fired a pistol, and they put him finally into a school for boys. He said he'd never grow up to be anything. But he loved music. And so he would play with street bands, and he really wanted to play and he really wanted to sing, but he just kind of didn't quite fit in. But he kept trying. He loved it. As he got older, there's a story that says he applied to a school of music. One of the first things they did was to hand him the scales and ask him to sing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. He could only sing the first 2 correctly, they said, so they rejected him. And in this story, it says that he went out and broke down and he cried because he was at a point in his life where it felt like everywhere he turned, he'd run into a roadblock. But a friend let all that out, and then he said to his friend, I know there is music inside of me, and there is nothing that will stop me from letting it out. Soon after that, he got a job on a riverboat, and he found someone who began to work with him. The man's name is Louis Armstrong. I'd say he could sing, wouldn't you? It's connecting with what's alive inside of you and sharing your gifts to the world in such a way that makes a difference. You may say, yeah, but Louis Armstrong didn't sing gospel music. You know what? That doesn't matter. When a person lets their own light out, do you see how his world changed? And how, as money came into his life, he began to face things like, how will I make a difference with this money? As recognition came into his life, he began to deal with things such as, how will I use my presence and my influence? Each and every one of us have gifts. Whether it's a little 3 or 4-year-old scream or a Louis Armstrong sound, or anywhere in between, we have our gifts to give. The world needs our light. How many of you are familiar with Emily Cady, one of the old founding writers for Unity? Dr. H. Emily Cady, at the turn of the century, wrote a book that's titled Lessons in Truth. It's still one of the most powerful books on good foundational spiritual teaching. The opening chapter of the book, it opens up and it says, liberty or bondage, which? Liberty or bondage, which? And if you look around, we can look around the world, and when we see bondage, again, I go back to the reading this morning, when we liberate ourselves, we're facing our fears, we're facing our beliefs that are suffocating. We could call that bondage. Anytime our light is not shining, anytime we're marching to the tune of fear and separation, we're living in bondage. And as never before, our world needs freedom from that bondage. And the way it takes place is through individuals who free themselves to let their light shine. However that takes place in each individual life. The physicist David Bohm said, as individuals alter their consciousness, so too do they affect a transformation in the surrounding environment. Now, for many, many years, spiritual teachings, eons, spiritual teachings have always said, as we change ourselves, we change the world, correct? We teach that. We believe that. We believe that as we are changed, we're not trying to change things out here as our first objective. We're trying to change this right here. And that as we change ourselves, the world around us also begins to rise up and embrace that level of new paradigm, new way of living. Well, it excites me that quantum science is now saying the exact same thing, because this is not a spiritual individual that said that. This is a quantum scientist who said, as individuals alter their consciousness, so too do they affect the transformation in the surrounding environment. In the early 1980s, during the Israeli-Lebanese War, there was a study that was done. It's since been called the International Peace Project in the Middle East. This study skyrocketed over 200 independent research of this technique. It's been done now in over 30 different countries. Now, what happened during this war, the Israeli-Lebanese war, it says that on a specific day of the month, while the war was taking place in the Middle East, individuals who had been trained in transcendental meditation, individuals that had been trained to not only think about peace, but individuals that had been trained to become an embodiment of peace. During this war, individuals were placed at specific places throughout the war-torn regions. And it says during the window of time that they were at peace, during the time that these individuals would be asked to go and just sit and create peace in yourself, terrorist activities declined, crimes against people declined, emergency room visits declined, and traffic accidents dropped.